Welcome back, everyone. This is Jose Niño again with another episode of El Niño Speaks. And today I am joined again by Jordan B. How are you today, man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, it's always a good convo. I look forward to it.
Yeah, we were talking a bit over DMs about the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, especially the response of Republicans and in general, like the conservative space. And one thing I wanted to bring up in particular was a tweet you dropped as I show in the screen here about a week ago, where already you've got people saying, "Oh, we need to vote GOP so
his
we can."
His body is still warm, and we're doing this already. It's insane. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, I was never that big of a Charlie Kirk fan, for the record, but I found a lot of the responses after his death to be quite ghoulish. But I find it even more insidious, though, that the GOP and its army of apparatchiks and boosters all around are just doing the typical grifting on emails, text messages. My phone is just blowing up with it, and my inbox is full of all these calls for donations, and worse yet, calls to vote GOP. This is, as I've long said, voting GOP straight ticket is just an exercise in futility, especially if you're not getting any deliverables from the GOP. Because I've seen this cycle all my time doing political activism and commentary, and people just go every election cycle, they get worked up by some event, like in this case, special event with regards to the Kirk assassination, but it's always some external event that's used to galvanize people to go to the polls, do the same thing every 2 to 4 years, and nothing changes.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, part of what I don't think I said it in that tweet, but there may have been a different one also that I said. You can't really it can't be overstated the extent to which the Charlie Kirk assassination was really one of the more extreme, or really should have been one of the most radicalizing events among the right since 9/11. And I think there's actually a parallel to draw there, because after 9/11, logical thinking would lead you to believe, oh, I'm sure after 9/11, we shut down the borders and didn't let those Muslims in anymore. No, we let more Muslims in after 9/11. And what you're going to get with Charlie Kirk, which I think is probably the most extreme event that's happened in politics. Arguably, I'm sure there's some debate about that, but arguably one of the most extreme events that's happened since 9/11. You would think that, oh, surely the GOP will capitalize on this and end their enemies, and this will turn a new page, and there will be a new chapter in Republican, not violent extremism, but at least political extremism. And what you're seeing is the exact opposite of that. Like I said in that tweet, I was quote tweeting someone who was saying, what you have to do now in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death is vote GOP. If not, you are disrespecting his family. And even before that tweet, I knew this would happen. You knew this would happen. They will take anything that could possibly be radicalizing and use it to de-radicalize you. They did it with Trump's election itself. Trump's election itself it ended up just being a way to bring people back onto the GOP plantation. Trump's assassination attempt, the attempt on his life, wasn't a radicalizing event. They used it as a way to say, vote harder, like you just said. They never want you to do anything other than check that box and write the check. And it's disgusting, because what I was telling my co-host, we were talking earlier, I did a show before this. What I was telling my co-host is that a lot of these people, when you look around at the memorial service for Kirk, you look at these tens of thousands of people, not the Vances, not the Tuckers of the world, but the salt of the earth Americans who are there in the stands. If the GOP gave them a different avenue to go down, and basically legitimize their feelings of extremism, they would follow them. But instead, and this ties into MAGA and kind of the type of person that is still heavily on the Trump train, these people will follow where their leaders send them, and they are sending them down a de-radicalized path, and that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, actually, going back to the George Bush thing, people forget this. After 9/11, Bush himself was telling people to go out and shop after 9/11, like that. And it's like a typical, it's all consumption driven, like boost the big red line. And dude, also this, you mentioned the Trump assassination. I remember very vividly people that got off the Trump train in 2020 because they saw that Trump was not delivering on immigration and all that stuff. People that got off and well into 2024 were saying, like, I'm not voting for Trump. People, I know people personally that are like, I would argue high political IQ, but when that assassination attempt went down, they went right back on. I'm just like, my God, I'm really hoping like this second term ends quickly, just goes by fast, because people have just taken leave of their senses. They've let their political brains fall out in the Trump era, and they're just engaging in some of the worst mental gymnastics I've ever seen. It's Olympic tier stuff.
I totally agree. And we probably need to do an episode about this in the future, or maybe I want to write something longer about it, but I really want to examine like what the long-term impacts of MAGA will be on right-wing politics, because ostensibly you look at what happened with MAGA and, the base became more populist. You could say they became more xenophobic in some ways. I would argue that was really just a facade. All MAGA really did was solidify the deep desire within them to vote red. And like I was saying, like with Charlie Kirk's assassination, it's really the same thing as the Trump election. The Trump election was supposed to be a refutation of the GOP, a saying of we're done with the GOP, we're with Trump, not the GOP. If anything, these people are even more tied to the GOP now than they were before Trump. A lot of these people who have high political acumen, high political IQ, especially the boomers and the people over 40, you talk to them and they're sounding like Bush era conservatives. We need to bomb Iran. You know what and I'm not a Russia shill, but they're even disregarding a lot of the things that they thought about that Trump would end the Ukraine war in 3 days. Now they're saying, well, that Putin has it coming. And it's like, maybe he does, but they're not thinking on the level we are. They're just like, yeah, it's fine. More war. It's fine. Hey, he did what he could. GOP is in, liberals are out. That's all I could do.
Yeah.
It's just this very low frequency. And it's really disappointing compared to what could have happened,
It's funny. I have an article that I've been working on. It should come out maybe at the end of the month or early next month, where I argue that Trump has actually out-Conning, and it's actually kind of funny because his campaign in 2016 was actually a genuinely populist, at least rhetorically, and he was talking about issues where was entertaining like the idea of like a public health care plan, something that would be anathema. And he's written about this too before, that would be anathema in Republican circles. I remember people too that I worked with in DC in these think tank spaces that were just horrified at the idea that Trump was talking about like a heterodox like type of economic platform and all of that. Then like you had like the typical criticism of like tariffs and then restricting immigration. However, when Trump came into office, if you look at his results in terms of actual legislative accomplishments, they were just generally tax cuts and then the judicial appointments, which just basically delivered victories on ending affirmative action and then expanding gun rights with the Bruin decision as well. And then also the foreign policy stuff was just straight up just Israel first. I've argued it's Judeo-accelerationist because he broke several taboos that even Republicans didn't do, like bombing Iran and even like moving the embassy to the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. Like that's stuff that like Reaganites and even Bushites would have not done. And all that. And when you actually look at it, he's effective, and also the ending Roe versus Wade with the judicial appointments there. When you look at it, Trump's administration has actually accomplished almost every Republican think tank item on their wish list. Like he's done it despite campaigning as a so-called populist that would break away from the GOP consensus. That's like the irony. When you look past the bloviating, the buffoonish stuff, and also the amounts of copium being dealt by Trump's boosters on social media, you realize that this guy just governed like a conventional Republican, and it's not a shock why the party is actually unified by him. I never bought the idea that there would be some like fracturing of the GOP base with Trump in office.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was naive. I was in my early 20s when Trump's ascendancy happened. And, you know, what I see from a lot of these people, these Trump boosters you're talking about, it's not really even an age thing, because you see this among, I'll just say it, like the John Doyle types, the captive dreamer types, the people that are very on the train. Yeah, exactly. Like these kind of people, what I see from them is that they're still stuck in this 2015 way of thinking of owning the libs. So instead of really caring about, you know, is Trump living up to his promises, they're still operating on the level of like, haha, he makes the left so mad. That's my guy. It's like, dude, the left is always going to be mad. We could do anything. They're going to be mad. We need to start holding them accountable, but they have no ability to do that. One of the funny ones that you just said, and I think this is like a common trend with Trump's entire reign, is every time you hear something that on the surface sounds good. So the example that you just used was the judiciary appointments went after affirmative action and DEI, right? Sure. On the surface, that's like a great thing. That's something that if you only read the headline, you'd be like, oh, well, that's great. But then you and I both know under the surface of that, so let's go with the attacking DEI stuff. All that was a way to solidify Jewish power in the Ivy Leagues. That's one. And then going after affirmative action. Okay, great. Maybe he not kicked out, but made it harder for unqualified Black people to get into the Ivy Leagues. Okay, great. He's going to import Chinese and Indians to undercut white collar jobs. So it's like at every step when you're like, oh, well, surely this is a good thing. There's always a
poison pill.
There's always a poison pill. And I'm just going to say it. I don't think his base has for the most part, has the political acumen to read. And Richard Hanania talks about this. They don't have the ability to read past just like the headline. Trump shutting down DEI. They read the headline. It's done. And it's like, no, dude, he's importing he's keeping the 600,000 visas. He's actually hasn't cut Indian H-1B labor not significantly more than Biden if you look at certain points in Biden's tenure. So there's always a poison pill, and MAGA has really just infantilized the base. People that, like I said earlier, people that would be radicalized by the state of America as it sits now, something that you and I both recognize, are completely just completely defanged now, and they're fine with it because it's their guy doing it, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, actually, one other point that is also overlooked here, and we have Trump's first term. We have like actual deliverables and evidence, deliverables for Con Inc. specifically to look at, and it continues into the present. One thing that is also overlooked, there's a open borders think tank, Migration Policy Institute, which is highly critical of Trump, but even they conceded that in his first term, I think of the last 40 years, Trump actually naturalized like the third highest number of foreigners. And I believe only Bush and I think Obama in his second term, Biden beat him out in terms of that naturalization figure. I need to look at it exactly, but it's just that people aren't looking at the facts, and that's the problem. One of the many problems is that people will have a very elaborate headcanon with Trump, and they're just completely detached from reality when you look at what's actually happening. And another point I'd like to stress as well on the affirmative action stuff, as you mentioned, if you get rid of affirmative action but still have like a system with high skilled, so-called skilled immigration, you're just going to get South Asian and Oriental overclass.
Exactly.
The university system, tech sector, and all that.
And Jewish, too. Well, not in the tech sector, but that goes without saying.
Yeah, it's almost by default there, because that's like those Asiatics are going to be like the new Shabbos going class for them.
Yeah.
Another point too, and this is something that Republicans are allergic to. If you talk to a lot of people in the corporate sector nowadays, a lot of the affirmative action and diversity policies, they're no longer state mandated. Corporate entities are doing it themselves. It's become so internalized. It's like a private sector thing. And I wrote an article, and I'm not sure if it's published yet, on white policy papers, where I said, like, there's going to come a point where you're going to have to use part of like the Civil Rights Act or some type of mechanism to have like proactive quotas or other measures to make up for the discrimination against whites, both in private sector and the public sector. You're going to have to use that, because technically the Civil Rights Act, which I generally would scrap, but actually does, there's like a recent Supreme Court ruling that says that it does also protect whites from discrimination. And
I'm with you. I'm generally for scrapping it, but but in general, the
GOP won't use that.
Like you said, they're allergic to wielding their own power. And part of me is, this is going to go off on a little bit of a side thing here, but this is why the Groypers and the Nick Fuentes movement, of which I'm largely part of and everything, they get a lot of heat for attacking JD Vance for having an Indian wife. And they say, well, what does that have anything to do with JD Vance's policy? He's going to be more right-wing than Trump. And, it ties into the Trump thing. It's like, sure, on the surface, yes, you could look at someone like Vance and say, oh, he's more educated than Trump. He understands the inner machinations of politics, all that stuff. I really have a hard time believing, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think I am. I have a hard time believing that JD Vance with his Indian family is gonna be tougher on H-1B, on the H-1B visa program than Trump is with his Indian family and his Indian wife, when he has to go to Thanksgiving and look these people in the eye, because we know he has no connection to his Appalachian side that he loves to claim so much. He has no connection to them. He spends Thanksgiving with Usha and his son Vivek, spends all the time with them. I find it very hard to believe that Vance is going to be our Caesar on shutting down South Asian immigration. I find that very hard to believe and very unlikely. Sorry, that's a side note, but
no, this is also another point too, and this is where people need to get schooled ultimately, because watch out for the lame duck session, especially if we end up with a divided Congress, because that's when the politicians show their true colors, when they're term limited and are in a lame duck status. And I've been predicting that there's going to be a move towards some type of amnesty or an expansion of legal migration after the midterms, because that's when and I've done a ton of lobbying in the past, and I've seen this happen with term limited or politicians that are in their lame duck session, that's when they start voting their conscience and start sticking it to the voters that got them elected and their overall constituencies. With regards to Vance, man, that guy's just made in a laboratory. Like, he just changes views in accordance with the times. Like, originally on the like David Frum forums, then does this whole hillbilly elegy LARP, and then like now he's just built in that Teal lab. And yeah, I think like he's just part of that crowd that's just uses the populist trappings to just hide his Teal-funded techno-accelerationist agenda that's going to feature a lot of South Asians and Oriental people that are going to help usher that in, because this stuff is just like out of this world. Honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it makes me nostalgic for normal republicanism, because this stuff is dystopian as hell, and it's actually emblematic of the change that's going underway in the U.S., which is for the worse.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's I mean, like, you could even leave aside the Vance's wife Usha and his family. Let's just push that off to the side. The fact that he has complete and total backing and support of Silicon Valley tells you everything you need to know about what his approach likely will be to the H-1B issue. If Trump wasn't able to escape that gravity, that pull of Silicon Valley kind of forcing him to not be as strict on immigration, I don't see how Vance would be any better. He's in bed with Vivek, and all you need to know about Vivek is his Saved by the Bell post that he did on Christmas, where he said that Americans are lazy bums. These
very military,
they have a chip on their shoulder, and it's not just that they have a chip on their shoulder, it's that they're tied in with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance named his son Vivek. He says this in Hillbilly Elegy. He named his son after Vivek Ramaswamy, after they were roommates at Yale. They were friends. He sees these people as his peers, and he likes them, and he gets money from Peter Thiel. Elon Musk and Tucker and Don Jr. were the three people that lobbied to have Vance as the VP. Okay, if it's if it's Elon and Thiel pushing Vance as VP, and they want H-1B, and they're giving Vance the money, I don't know why people think Vance is going to do a 180 and stab his benefactors in the back. I just don't see it at all. And it's very short-sighted for people who think that he's just going to flip a switch or something. Like, come on, man.
Oh, he's gonna be flipping a switch, all right.
Oh yeah,
you know,
well,
it's gonna be like going towards like the AI dystopia. Yeah. Like, here's the problem: these people need to improve their headcanon. They got to get better headcanon, because like the thing is, he's not gonna be flipping the switch to usher in like based right-wing era. He's going to be ushering in this weird panopticon state that belongs in like a dystopian film. And also, again, to defend the otherwise like indefensible, gotta hit it like with regards to like a boomer Republican. Even those people would go as far as to like usher in this type of like techno dystopia where you're like the entire Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all this stuff gets privatized and all this, and then like your government is just replaced by AI or whatever weird stuff this Teal crowd has cooked up. And actually, like, that's one thing, like, in defense of Trump, which I rarely ever do these days, but like that's something that's like restraining this ability, because imagine if like he were just to keel over and Vance takes control, like you're gonna get that, and it's gonna be pretty awful. And I think that you have to look at this guy's trajectory of him being built in the laboratory and just changing position depending on where the political winds are blowing. Like, yeah, I've ever bought the hype and think that 2028 is just gonna be a total shit show all around. And I warn people that to stop, like, tell them that if you want actual political change, you got to withhold your vote at some times. You got to like actually demand a certain type of policy deliverable, whether it's like a roll call vote for like an immigration moratorium or like the introduction of that legislation or something like that. Not some vague campaign promise, because I've seen this happen too many times where people put all their hopes in a politician who smooth talks their way into office and on the Fox News media circuits and all of that. But then when they come in, they just govern like a typical Republican. When you follow the money and you look at who these politicians packed with, you'll figure out quick that these people were frauds from the jump. But unfortunately, we live in an era where people have very much goldfish memory, and also they suffer from shiny object syndrome, so they're quite easy to dupe. And
Yeah,
you have to have this outside force, whether it's like Reuters or whatever, that's going to put these people in check, both the politicians and the take sellers.
yeah. I mean, it almost feels at this point like this was the purpose of MAGA, like almost like the purpose of it was to, because you and I are old enough to remember the Obama years, and we remember the discontent with the system, and it's almost like normie Republicans can remember when Obama was elected, and they can say Obama was just brought in there to appease the left. He didn't do nothing different than the average Democrat, but they said he was going to. It's like, yeah, but how do you not see that that's exactly what happened with Trump? Obama was elected in the aftermath of the discontent of the invasion of Iraq, the bailout of the banks, the rise of the Occupy Wall Street movement. And Obama was elected under the change and hope thing. And, granted, naive liberal Democrats and leftist Democrats thought they were going to usher in their leftist Caesar. And Obama was actually not too much different than the last guy. New boss, same as the old boss. But then when it happened with Trump, because the right wing was just as discontented after the Obama years, we got the same thing. We got our version of Obama, basically. And it kind of feels like MAGA was this. I don't know how involved. I don't know how a part of it Trump was in and this is just me. This is my theory. I don't know how a part of it Trump was. I don't know that he was like, yes, I will pretend to be the champion of the people. But it definitely feels like the Zionist forces around him, the Jewish forces around him, set him up to be this champion of the people that eventually led to a back in of GOP politics. And I think that's what will eventually lead to like that Palantir techno state. Because, I talk to a lot of normie Republicans, and they can't fathom not voting for Vance. They can't fathom not voting red next go around. They've never not voted red, and they're not going to do so now after they saw Trump on, what they always say, they tried to kill this man. We got to vote for him. It's like these people have an emotional attachment to Trump now. Yeah. And there really wasn't anyone else other than Trump that could have built that emotional attachment. It wasn't going to be Jeb. It wasn't going to be Ted Cruz. It wasn't going to be Marco. Ironically, it wasn't going to be Marco Rubio. Now they're saying that it might be Vance Rubio 2028, and you're getting the same people who said, I don't want Rubio. He's a swamp creature, who say, well, he's doing a good job as Secretary of State. It's like goldfish memory, like you said. Just no long-term thinking, no memory of what actually transpired. It's not looking good, man.
Vance Rubio, that is so ironic.
That's what I've been seeing.
That's like literally the ticket that the Never Trump Jew David Frum would love. That's actually the irony of this. Like a Never Trump Jew is gonna get his wish in the long term, and that's the thing, because people aren't playing the long game here. They're just doing reactionary chimp style politics where they aren't looking at like the long term consequences of their political moves. I want to go back to one point about the Obama thing. I noticed a fell forward again dynamic as well, because when I was involved in the 9/11 truth movement, and this was like 08 to 2010, there was a debate among some of these people, because this movement was more left coded at the time.
It was.
People Yep, at the time, and there was a debate whether people were going to like support Obama because they thought that this guy would end the wars, blah blah blah. And I remember being amongst a minority of people saying like, no, this is not going to happen. This guy's just saying stuff. Like if you look at who's funding him, who he's palling around with, this guy's just going to continue more of the same. And there was actually a good and this created enough of a fissure though, the Obama effect, that there was I knew a good deal of truthers that ended up voting for him. And then here's what you end up getting. You end up getting Libya, the Syria crisis, the Euromaidan crisis in Ukraine, record drone strikes at the time. Actually, Trump has actually beaten Obama in that regard. But
wow.
But Obama set the stage for like assassinations via drone as part of U.S. statecraft. He really broke the taboo on that. And this is like a lesson to both parties that both of you guys are susceptible to receiving the Fell For It Again awards because you guys aren't doing your research. You get fooled very easily by slop politics in some shape or form and aren't doing your homework.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Spencer has made this point, so I'll attribute this to him. When you actually look at their foreign policy, you could actually make the argument that Trump was actually a continuation of Obama's foreign policy, whereas Bush represented something different. You could argue that Obama broke away from Bush foreign policy in certain ways, not necessarily like with what actually happened, but more their approach to the Middle East. So Bush was very much like, hey, we're going to put troops on the ground and, we're going to do, put 200,000 troops in Iraq. Obama really started the idea of like this passive aggressive foreign policy where, you drone strike a wedding and then you're never seen. And then you drone strike this country. That's really what Trump continued, even down to the Euromaidan. Trump is now backing Ukraine. I think you actually got more of a continuation. And actually, Obama did want to do the Asia pivot, and kind of pivot to China, which is what a lot of people in the State Department want to do, like Elbridge Colby and stuff. Yeah. They do want to make the Asia pivot, but so did Obama. But he couldn't because he was still beholden to the same forces that Trump fundamentally is also. Now, the counter to that is that Obama did put the Iran deal into motion, which is something that I just objectively support. The Iran deal was a good deal. But the fact that he had to do it kind of under Israel's nose, never fully got out of the Middle East, even though he wanted to as a matter of principle, that does say a lot about the powers that Obama and Trump, I think, are both beholden to, maybe in different ways. Obama wasn't beholden to Zionists, but they are both beholden to Jewish power at the end of the day. And the other thing, I'll let you go, but the other thing that I think is funny, just kind of as an aside, with the 9/11 truther movement, you said that it used to be very left-coded. What's funny, what's happened over the last 17 years, really since 2008, maybe a little later, the last 13 to 17 years, is there's so many issues that used to be left-wing coded that are now right-wing coded. The anti-vax issue, the Make America Healthy Again
big time.
All used to be left-wing coded. Homeschooling used to be left-wing coded. Anti-war used to be left-wing coded. There are all these issues that I think that the right has done a good job of making their own, but it's actually more of the same. Actually, it's very bizarre. I don't know what to make of that yet, but I just think it's funny that even something like criminal justice reform is like a right-wing talking point now, surprisingly. Like, we're going to free the blacks because they would be Republicans if we freed them. It's like all these issues, and I'm not saying the left isn't pro-criminal justice reform. I'm just saying that all these little issues the right tried to make them theirs. They just kind of did it in a more sloppy, less effective, lower IQ way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We took their thing and just did it less effectively. Even infrastructure. Infrastructure was one of the things that I agreed with Trump on in 2016 when I was really on the Trump train. Really the last time I was on the Trump train per se was 2018 or so. And I remember Trump talking about we need to rebuild our great American cities. We can't ride the train anymore because everything's broken. That used to be a left-wing talking point, and I remember the left had a hard time refuting that. Here we are 7 years later. Have we done anything about that? Have we rebuilt the airports? No, we haven't done any of that. So like I said, we just take their points and just like do them in a sloppy, low IQ RFK. We're going to take the Tylenol out of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm sharing this right here. This is a really good article, and this this builds off one of your points about the Iran nuclear deal. Hindsight's 2020, but after I read this article a few months ago, and I've been rereading it too, I'm actually convinced that in many respects, there's a strong argument that could be made that like Trump MAGA was just like an Israeli op to effectively get him elected and get rid of not only the Iran nuclear deal, but do all the Abraham Accords, the move to Jerusalem, the Soleimani assassination, the bombing of Iran, and all this Judeo-accelerationist stuff. And even there was
and you get that on steroids after October 7th, basically.
Yeah.
You have part one, which was 2016, and then after October 7th, was it 2023? You get that on steroids, and then the billionaires start coming over. Sorry, that's all I was going to throw in there.
Yeah, and one thing, the late journalist Michael Collins Piper, in one of his books, forgetting the name right now, it was like released in 2005. He was saying like that he found a pretty good deal of evidence that Trump has had these connections with organized Jewry, especially the like dirtiest criminal elements and even Mossad assets for decades. And he exposed this in a lot of Trump's like casino dealings. So like this movement was never our guy. And you even see this in Europe too. And I've documented this too. A lot of these so-called based right-wing parties are just like cat's paws for Jewish supremacists in Israel. Like these vehicles are fake. You have to follow the money and follow like the speaking tours and all that, and the people that are backing these parties to see it. And that's why it's really important that we have as many online sleuths and people that are just getting the facts straight and holding these people accountable. Because the same scam is going to just be repeated over and over again.
Elon has been spending an inordinate amount of time in Europe pushing a lot of these right-wing parties like AfD, the Nigel Farage,
Reform,
the Reform Party, yeah, exactly. So, like, if Elon is just a general heuristic, if Elon is pushing something, I'm just a little skeptical of it. I don't know that you know. I'm not going to go as far as to say that AfD would be worse for Germany than who is it now? Olaf Schultz or whoever's running Germany now. I'm not going to say that would be worse for them. I'm just saying that, you know, beware. You're not, like you said, you're not getting lib-based immigration party. You know, Elon is a big fan of Georgia Maloney. She's let in more illegal immigrants, and she's been naturalizing the Africans in Italy. So, like, you know, all these people that Elon is aligning himself with, specifically in Europe.
Javier
Milei, yeah, exactly. South America. I'm just skeptical. And Vance is just another one in the litany of people you could name to be skeptical of, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Milei case, man, this even goes more personal. People that I knew working in libertarian think tank spaces, they all jumped on that bandwagon. And guess what? His government is asking for a freaking bailout from the United States right now.
I mean, if
fell for it again.
I mean, that's really the calling card of the last few years is fell for it again, man. I don't, you know, at a certain point, it's like these people kind of got what they wanted. You got what you deserved, like Joker said. And, you know, it's really disappointing because there were so many opportunities for the Trump thing to become what people wanted, which was like American Caesar, right-wing American Caesar. And there were opportunities for that. If Trump was our guy, you know, you could have the country that we want. But, you know, people are so easily fooled that, all it takes is a headline, and they will vote for the red team again and again and again.
Yeah.
And they'll call you the bad person for saying, you know what, I'm going to withhold my vote. My vote is the only, I'm not a multimillionaire. I don't wield power as a lobbyist. My power is with my vote. And these people just don't understand that. They're still stuck in this own the libs, make them cry. And it's like, you need to be making your own side cry and perform for you. The libs are always going to be crying about whatever you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've mentioned this to people because I still do this on the side. I don't do it full time like I used to when I did Second Amendment lobbying, but I generally explain this, that if you get like a concentrated voting block, say of like 250,000 to like 1 million people, and these people are like committed on one issue, say Second Amendment, abortion,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And you just say like, hey, I got this amount of votes here, 1 million votes. If you don't deliver on this issue, we're not voting for you. Like that's where you can actually have like power, can actually leverage elections and flip elections. But when you're just like voting all the time without getting anything in return, those politicians, they will just continue to backstab you. They ultimately function like Pavlovian dogs at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. They respond to stimulus. So if you give them negative stimulus, they'll actually start listening. But if you just continue to positively reinforce their crappy behavior, expect the sellouts, expect people like Lindsey Graham to always be like not only governing, but having his policies dominate, even when you have an extensive so-called populist like Trump in office.
Yeah, I mean, look at what the GOP is. Look at how they've rolled out the carpet for the black vote, and nothing's ever come of it. Like literally nothing has ever come of that. But every 4 years, we're told, no, this is the year because we said something about like you guys are wrongly incarcerated or something like that. It never happens, but like just even the like, and I don't even think that there's 1 million black people saying to Republicans, hey, we'll vote for you if you help us with this. They're not even making the claim that they'll vote for them, but just the idea that they will go out to bat for them, but they won't go to bat for, the guy who just graduated from a state school with a computer science degree, because he doesn't want to get his labor undercut by, Sithun from Bangalore. They won't even do that. They won't even give you the scraps. But that's what you see time and time again is these people just like, they're like dogs. They're just fighting for the little scraps. And yeah, man, I just, it couldn't be me. I mean, it's really disappointing talking to older people because what we're talking about is stuff I started to realize when I was about 24 years old. And maybe it's an emotional connection. Maybe these people do, I used to kind of laugh at this idea that Republicans, your average Republican does kind of view Trump in like a godlike supernatural figure. There is actually truth to that. I think you cannot get these people off the Trump thing, even when they're getting nothing out of it. It's very disappointing.
Yeah, and I'd also agree with one point you said that it's become a cross-generational thing. I think so-called dissidents also stoop down to this GOP worship, especially in the wake of the Kirk assassination. These people should know better than to like just blindly trust the GOP, because you have multiple decades of the so-called infiltration and entry strategy from a John Birch society, from like Ross Perot adjacent people, the Buchananites, the Ron Paul revolution. It's all the same. These people either get assimilated into the GOP, get purged, or just drift into obscurity after they get pushed out by more well-organized interests that range from like neoconservatives to like even like now increasingly, and it's been like this Jewish-dominated orgs. And that's I think at some point we have to realize like the strategy's got to change or else.
Yeah. I mean, I look at like the dissident thing you said is perfect. I look at a lot of these people who I even respect, like people like Scott Greer. I think Scott Greer is an intelligent guy. I think he is a great writer. I think he's very smart. But you listen to his show, and really all it comes down to is he's following GOP politics like at a very like not a low IQ level, but he's following all the minutia of GOP politics. This GOP guy might lose his seat. We got to vote for this guy, and then this, and it's like it's somebody who's been in the GOP minutia in the swamp, not the swamp, but the GOP minutia for so long that he's not even thinking about like his vote or what he can take away from them. You know, a lot of these people want jobs in the GOP, and they want to be the court jester. They want to be the not the court jester, but they want to be maybe the butler in the grand scheme of things. I'll do anything to get a spot. And it's like, dude, I Scott Greer is like a white nationalist basically, and we're watching Indians pour in, we're watching Chinese pour in, and what you hear on his show is he's basically like, yeah, but we can't withhold our vote because the left is bad. And it's like, dude, you're a smart guy. You're a smart guy. And I just really hate hearing that from like people who would otherwise be radicalized against the GOP. And it's like they use their intellect to convince themselves, no, keep going. It's like a gambler fallacy. It's like, I've already put 10,000 in. I can't get out. All I got to win is one hand, and then I'll only lose half as much as I lost already. It's like it's a degenerate gambler playing blackjack until the casino closes. That's always the thing I get.
Yeah, some of these people think that they're like on some secret mission to infiltrate like the institution and like and then eventually like sabotage it and take control of it in the long term.
But they take control of you in the long term.
And even like the sicker joke is what in reality what you're gonna get is just a fancy cock chair.
Yeah,
as you watch like. Your girl get plowed out by just like greasy set of Jews and other gatekeepers of the party.
And you can sit in the corner and make your podcast and write your articles, but they know you will never be a threat because they know that you are just checking the red box for eternity.
Yeah, you're just sitting your ass in the cuck chair and doing nothing about it.
Sometimes quite literally in some of these.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about Greer. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
no.
Some of these guys. Some of these, literally, they're
and that's one of the innovations of this late stage conservatism about just how degenerative. Actually, I wanted to point this out too. With this whole obsession with the black outreach, it's obviously has created the desired electoral effect, and everybody knows why that is. But it's created a whole cottage industry of black conservative and just non-white conservative influencers. They're just straight up scam artists and grifters, and that's just like further cementing the third worldification of U.S. politics, brought to you by the so-called populist Republican Party that's gonna restrict immigration and all this. It's just like, no, when you do this stuff, you're gonna turn your party and to a broader extent the country into a third world circus. It's going to become that way whenever you do this goofy stuff.
Yeah. It never ceases to amaze me when I listen to black conservatives like Brandon Tatum or some of these lower tier.
That guy's just a house slave for.
So he's just not a smart guy. It's like I almost feel bad for him because he's like. He's just not. It's just that's all you can say is he's not an intelligent guy, and you listen to them talk long enough, and they're not even conservative. They just have these throwaway lines that they don't think people notice, and maybe their audience isn't that smart either. And they say these lines like, "Man, I don't care what race, color, creed you are. If you come to this country and you work hard, that's what I want." It's like, okay, so you don't care about the border then. You literally don't care about the border. I don't care about Jewish power. You know what? The Jews work hard. So it's like, okay, so you don't care about foreign influence. Like, it's just like these people are unserious. And this is kind of the level of intelligence that we're, say what you, I guess I'll give the devil their due. Say what you will about the Democrats and the left. I don't like, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm not a particularly big fan of Coleman Hughes even, but at least they're well read. At least they went to Ivy League. Coleman Hughes is actually kind of intelligent, but at least the black liberals, like, they kind of know history and can talk philosophy and kind of understand economics. Put them in a room with Brandon Tatum, they'll eat him alive. He'll leave crying. He would leave crying, saying that they racist or something. Like, it's insane to me. I just can't. I can't it's ironic me saying this, but I can't with the brownification of like the GOP, because they really are just, it's pandering, but it's just like the lowest form of pandering, man.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where the parties quite literally being transmogrified into this just incoherent hue of like melanin that you have. It's gonna get to the point where you're gonna have, like, on one spectrum in like the GOP, the black conservative grifters, and then for like the high class, you're gonna have like a Vivek Ramaswamy, like,
Right.
AI powered, like, Indian that just like transcribes all Republican speeches on his like AI platform, and just so they can
Builds them into one and just goes.
just throw some like generic script of like vacuous talking points to hoodwink people,
He has like
all while just promoting like a mass migration scheme.
Like
This
a
is
Palantir, he has like a Palantir contact lens that scans the crowd for race and gender and age group, and then it just spits out what that group wants to hear, and it just goes. I can quite literally see that.
To be honest, I actually agree with whenever Chris Christie was on the debate stage, whenever he quipped that, like, yo, like, this Vivek Ramaswamy guy just sounds like ChatGPT. Like,
dude, that was so like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that was so like unintentionally racially coded that I loved it. I was like, no, he's right. He does sound like ChatGPT, because Indians literally say, "Hello, sir. How can I help today?" Like, he is the support team of the GOP. He's like the support. He's like the chat. Like, like when you go to a site, like you go to AmericanAirlines.com or whatever, and like there's the question mark chat function in the corner, and you click it and it responds, "Hello, sir. Do you need help with dun 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 today?" That's what Vivek is. He's support team for the chat for the GOP.
It's a new GOP.
It's chat.
Gujarat party.
It's chat. It's chat GOP. Chat GOP.
Yeah.
There we go. I like that one.
Yeah, that should be the episode title. Well, I think this is a good spot to wind things down, man.
Yeah, man. Perfect.
Yeah, like, you go ahead and plug away what you're doing these days.
Oh yeah, just if you're interested in my content, you can follow me on Twitter at Jordan JORDAN B, the letter B, and then videos VIDE0S, Jordan B videos, and then on YouTube it's Jordan B videos VIDOS. So X is Jordan B videos VIDE0S. YouTube is videos traditional spelling, Jordan B videos.
All right, man. Thank you again for coming on, and also to the audience, thank you for tuning in. And with that, El Nino has spoken.